you often discuss the MOPI systems, and you're known for discussing the MOPI subject.
Oh, I got sucked into those arguments. Those guys are so impossible. It's just like infuriating to try to explain something to them, and it pissed me off. You know, these guys are so like cult brainwashed. Anyway, yeah, I learned a lot from those discussions. But
what is your? I mean, I have Jim McMillan's book over there as well about the MOPI, where he talks about John Chang and the MOPI system and stuff like that.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the real MOPI, not the Western? I mean, and for the record, I'm not here to bash any of the quote unquote Western MOPI people, but what is your take on the real, authentic MOPI people? Do you think there's many schools similar to this that exist in Asia, possibly?
Probably are. Obviously John Chang developed some good chi power and psychic abilities. So what he was having them do was effective. Mr. Young was against creating tension and pressure like they do. And so we did everything softly. And one thing about the MOPI is, like, I wouldn't really call it Nei Kung, because as far as my definition is concerned, Nei Kung means like 10,000 techniques. Because you need to learn thousands of techniques if you're really going to be a Qigong master. If you just learn a Qigong set with 10 techniques, you can say you've mastered it, but you're really not going to know Qigong as if you studied the whole thing. But anyway, like each level was only one technique. And that seemed really strange to me to call it a level, because we learned so many techniques. But you know, if it's producing results, then that's okay. And there's probably other schools like that. But evidently these guys, some of them get sick, they get cancer, and so maybe it's not really that focused on health. They focus on chi power and risk their health a little bit. We have to heal ourselves really well before developing chi power, because we want to have healthy chi and not sick chi. But, I heard that the top student of John Chang now only made it to level 3. And so if there's 72 levels, 3 or 4, I can't recall exactly, and I don't know if that's true, but if it is, that means that the other 68 techniques are lost, because John retired, right?
Well, John is dead now, so yes.
Oh, he's dead now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously he was doing things that are good for power, but I'm more concerned with doing things. I don't really care about the power that much, to be perfectly honest. I'm more interested in health and longevity, which leads to immortality, and psychic abilities and things like that.
Right.
So I think they focus more on power, which is okay if they want to do that. You know, that's cool. And I imagine there are other schools. They're probably hidden. Usually those things are kind of well hidden. And the only reason the world discovered John Chang is because of those guys that the guy that had an eye infection, you know.
Right. The Ring of Fire documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, he made the videos. So people learned about John, where there might be 100 more of those guys that are still hidden.
Right.
And the person that reads books is not going to find them.
Right.
They have to run into them. They basically have to run into them by accident.
Right. Or just take action and have faith, like Kostas Danaos or guys like Jim McMillan. They just kind of, took action and try to find these masters. So,
well, yeah, that's part of it, sure.
Right. So there's another individual popular on YouTube. Are you familiar with Master Jiang's work? He's a gentleman who, he projects chi, if you will, and there's some, there's a blonde girl.
He's the guy that can
make marks on her body, and there's another gentleman that get marks on their body. You know who I'm talking about?
He's the guy that can make things get hot, and he.
Right.
He likes to put tin foil and paper and makes it get hot.
I believe he's done a few of those types of demos as well. Yeah.
Yeah. How do you spell his name?
His name is I believe his name is. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Master Jiang.
Oh, Jiang. Is he the guy that died of a stroke?
I believe he died of a stroke. If I'm not mistaken, I could
be. Okay. Yeah. Well, there's you can cultivate chi power by creating pressure. In other words, like they do, take a breath and then compress it really hard, and you can use that to create power. But it's really bad for your health. People that do that die of strokes and hernias and heart attacks and busted blood vessels. So he had the habit, or he was trained to do that. So he was trying to heal somebody, and he was going like that really hard, and he popped a blood vessel in his brain. And I know this guy, this shaman here in Vilcabamba, and he can make people fall down in the distance because he's cultivated good power. And he was doing that where he was pressurizing, and he gave himself a hernia.
Wow.
So he found out there is a way you can do it without creating pressure.
Fascinating.
And so that's how we did it, more or less. We would do it much more softly, and still have power, except I personally don't, like Chris can light up a light bulb. I never even tried lighting up a light bulb, but I tried it last night. And nothing happened. So I could probably learn to do it. But as far as the heat's concerned, like, okay, there's this other master. He's an old guy. He puts on shows where he puts paper and tinfoil on people and makes them get hot. Well, about a year ago or something, my ex-wife was complaining about pain in her side.
Quick, while I'm looking, so Jesus is asking, ask him why he thinks the Mopai Americans are cultists. You touched upon that a little bit. Could you address that one more time? And there's another question.
Oh well, maybe they're not all cultists, but the ones that were these like rabid pushers of Mopai on these forums, you couldn't talk sense to them. It's like you point out what they're doing something stupid. You go, look, this doesn't make sense. And they couldn't see it. They would ignore it. They were blind. And they're like fanatically dedicated to these like 2 exercises that Kostas or the other guy gave them. And they're lying. They're saying, we represent Mopai when they only know two of the levels. And like everybody that tried to talk reason with them just threw their hands up. It's like, oh my God, you can't talk to these guys. So they're just like any religious fundamentalists of the worst kind. You cannot talk reason with them. They can't see reality. They're totally focused on this thing. And it's like a cult. I would say that's like a cult. A cult usually has a leader. Okay, so their leader was John. But I don't think John was, like, I saw, who's the other guy? There's Kostas, and then there's the other guy.
I mean, I could be wrong about this. I believe David Burdessy, Kostas Danaos, and Jim McMillan are the well-known, Western students, if you will. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong about that. But
well, there was some guy that had pictures of him doing examples of the first 2 levels, and that wasn't Kostas. It was the other guy, but I can't recall his name right now. But he was showing how to do sitting meditation, and he was doing it wrong. It's like he had you're supposed to relax as much as possible. He had a grimace on his face, and he was like slumping, and his posture was to one side, and it's like, didn't John ever correct him? Like he was learning this one level for a year. Didn't he ever get corrected? It's like, what is this? Why is he doing it wrong? If he does the level 1 wrong, he's maybe doing the level 2 wrong too. Plus, like I said, I don't believe in cultivating that pressure, using pressure methods to cultivate power. So, you know, if John wasn't correcting him, he wasn't really teaching him. He was just sitting there doing it wrong. So he wasn't even qualified to teach level. He didn't have permission to teach. He wasn't supposed to teach the level 1 or 2. He kind of like stole it. But yeah, so there's that answer your question about. So that's why I think it's kind of like a cult. It's like a religious fundamentalist. And you could say it's a religious fundamentalist cult because they're like a little tight little group and they share their lies and they kick out anybody who tries to talk sense to them. Like I joined their forum and that's before it's called the Nei Kung forum. And I go, hey, I know Nei Kung. I can tell you guys about some of this stuff. And I found out right away, it's really a John Chang Mopai forum. They didn't want to hear what I had to say.
I see.
And so I got kicked out right away.
Right. So, where did it mention in one of your videos that you have met Kostas Danaos in person?
Right.
Could you talk to me about that experience within the range you can share that information?
Yeah.
You mentioned that it was a secret meeting or something like that. So if it's too
well,
secret,
it was a semi-secret kung fu seminar in the mountains of northeastern Oregon, taught by my kung fu brother and fearless clan leader Steve Smith, and I was there to learn basically the soft internalized, I call it, learning how to kill people without really trying. But anyway, I went there to teach some Qigong, and Kostas was there, and he gave a little speech. And later I was talking to him, and the subject came up as why did he leave John Chang? And he said that he didn't really mesh with the Malaysian culture and way of teaching. And he said that there were monks in Greek Christian monks who had the same abilities that John Chang had. And he preferred to learn that stuff from somebody from his own country.
I see.
His own countrymen, see. So he just wanted to he's a Greek, so he wanted to learn from Greeks. And evidently he didn't really mesh with John Chang that well. So that's all he told me.
Interesting.